Hey, what's up, guys? Happy Friday. So we just finished up at the shop with the L33 block for this customer's old school box Silverado 5.3 L33. And the other part I wanted to go over is that you saw in the pictures in our post is when we had to stud the block because we're going to be putting more boost. Now, you may be wondering, what does it mean to stud the block? Well, what they use is they actually use studs. For example, let's use this marker. So there was like a stud, right? They're going to put a stud into a block. And what it's supposed to do, especially for the cylinder heads, is it's supposed to keep the cylinder head and the block to be stick together and be able to bolt down. But in some cases, some cars have the issue of, having blown head gaskets or losing compression because the studs are wearing out or the threads are starting to go out. Most likely because of the studs itself on the threads, they're getting weak where they end up starting pulling out with the cylinder heads. So, what does it mean when we're restudding the block? Well, when we restud the block, we're not just using, we're not using thin little bolts to go into the block. What we're actually going to do is we go inside, right? If you can see here, and say it goes into like a little threads, right? They got little threads, and they bolt in the screw, right? Going to the cylinder block. What we're doing is we're retapping it, right? Not only tapping to have a smooth, flat surface, but we're deciding that we're going to go with a bigger bolt with bigger threads to hold down the cylinder head and the block together. Now this will be like the top deck of our cylinder head. So what does that mean when you have a bigger bolts? So if these dots are here going for the bolts of going for the holes to put the studs in for the block, what we're doing is, like we're showing you here, is we're putting in a bigger stud. We're retapping, going flat surface and put bigger studs in there, the bigger surface, with larger diameter. So our bolts become bigger. So, a little drawing example. We're putting bigger studs Okay, so what's the purpose of it? The purpose is to have these thicker studs to be able to hold more into the block, to not only help the block become stronger and more compressed sealed so we don't lose compression, as far as for boosted applications as well. Because in many cases, what would happen is if these weren't studded, right? Now let's go to another case of the drawing. Show you guys another example of this. What's going to happen if you have your block surface here for your engine, right? There's your piston, your cylinders, here's the bolts, right? Here's your cylinder head, your combustion chamber, right? So those bolts will also connect to your cylinder heads. Going from your cylinder heads down to go bolt in, to compress together. So what happens if, right, if these threads, right, what happens if they start stripping out or start pulling apart? What happens is you separate the combustion chamber from the block, you lose your compression. Compression goes out. And what a lot of cases, and what happens, why that happens, is the engine overheats. Because in cases, all cases, heat expands. So what's going to do with that? Since the heat expands because we lost lost compression, and there's air coming out even from the outside. Even sometimes some cases when a blown head gasket, air comes extra added in, also going to that combustion chamber here. Extra fuel will also give it extra air. Not enough fuel gives it a detonation, misfire. So what we do here, and that solution, right, to prevent that from happening, we go with, so let's clear this out. We go with larger studs. We're going for the heads and the block. That way, it has more grip. Basically, it's grabbing hold more of the block to hold compression. And then in many cases, handle more boost, more wear, more horsepower of your sort, more beating, more compressed air, more heat. Especially some of us who live in the southwest states and the west side of the states, like California, Arizona, Vegas, and such. That will happen. You overheat. Those studs are supposed to do is supposed to hold compression so it seals. You have no detonation, but also it's supposed to do is actually resist the bolts from wear when you put more boost and more power